Stafford from Mimecast is joining me in studio. Now we are going to be speaking about the state of hacking in South Africa when it compares to the rest of the world. Hello.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for joining me on this hot, beautiful day.
Thanks very much for having me.
All right, well, we're going to be speaking about the state of hacking in South Africa. But before we get into that, I would like you to define what exactly web stalking is for us.
Sure, no problem. So I guess, over the course of the evolution of the internet, what we've seen is people obviously adopting the internet very, very quickly. And then more and more people are finding relevant services to a relevant part of their lives on the internet. And quickly what we've seen is people sharing all kinds of different bits of information on various services that are on the internet. These bits of information in isolation may not appear to be particularly dangerous, but what we're seeing is elements out there connecting some of these bits of information together to create quite credible stories around people. They can learn a lot of information which can create vulnerabilities in people. So some examples of that kind of thing, I think everyone shares what's going on in their social lives in a service like Facebook. They share what's going on in their work lives and their history and their capabilities in things like LinkedIn. People share what their exercise preferences are in Strava, right down to what they're doing in terms of dating, what movies they like, etc. And the challenge is that these appearing isolated bits of information, once harvested and stitched together, allow web stalkers to create some quite powerful vulnerabilities in terms of specific individuals or of course organizations.
Now, I think a lot of people, when they're sharing this information online, they think, well, they are not important to anyone, or why would anyone want to steal my information? I mean, I don't have a lot of money, so they're probably going to target some millionaire somewhere. Is that a mindset we need to start thinking about changing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think any person, organization is only as strong as their weakest link, and I think typically what we're seeing is this evolution of sophistication. If we look years ago, approaches were quite generic. Viruses were fairly generic and were protected by software. Then spam came along, and that was a little bit more sophisticated, but mostly now protected by software. What we're now seeing is targeted phishing and spear phishing attacks, where the designers of these attacks are specifically looking to harvest specific information. And if you're being targeted, there's something of value that you have. Most certainly, anyone who works in an organization, as an example, one of the targets could be the organization's data.
All right. So, for example, if a hacker, finds my password to Facebook somehow, and my password for my work computer is the same, there's their entry point into my organization. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Most certainly. So I think what we see there typically is, from the web stalking approach that you spoke about earlier, you can receive a phishing email. That email may appear to come from a fairly credible address. It may have a bunch of information that lets your guard down. They appear to know quite a lot about you.
Right.
They would incite some vulnerability or some inconvenience in you. If you don't click on this link and update this bit of information, you may not be able to buy petrol or pay bills or whatever it is. Of course, then you go and you click on the link, and the splash page that comes up looks properly connected to the email, properly connected to the organization that you recognize. Next thing, you've put in your username and password, and from there the dominoes start to fall. So once they've got your password, probably the largest vulnerability that we see from a human point of view is that people have hundreds and hundreds of passwords, hundreds and hundreds of services or tens of services, and they tend to use the same password for everything. So once that vulnerability is opened in terms of understanding that password, it opens up your work account, your bank account, your Facebook account, which further opens up further vulnerabilities. So that's most certainly a big concern.
Geez, I think a lot of people, well, I don't think, I know, I hear them all saying all the time that having more than one password is just too hard to remember. Do you have any tips for those people?
Yeah, I mean, there are tips out there. What a lot of people do is they might carry 3 or 4 passwords, which is easier than remembering many.
Right.
And they may manage those passwords in different risk categories. Most certainly, one of the strongest defenses is to have quite a complicated password, so none of the obvious. I actually heard on the radio this morning, there's a report done with the top 5 most recognized passwords, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. QWERTY, which is the line across the keyboard, variations of the word password, and most certainly we need to get away from those. If you're really serious about protecting your data, there are services that help you generate random passwords, and help you then find the password for a particular service in your password list. So there's a bunch of applications that do that. And as things like identity theft and phishing evolve, those kinds of services are going to become more and more valuable to people.